Good morning, everybody. I'm Coach Todd Bookspan, coach with Building Champions. Who don't know me, I get to run the show today as Dave is on a plane flying home from Iowa, of all exciting places. He said he's got some great stories to share with us next week, so I'm super appreciative that all of you are taking time to be here on a Friday. It's one of my favorite days of the year. It is National Beer Day. So anyone else who's a fan of beer, it's you have a reason to celebrate at the end of the day today, not during the day, at the end of the day. And just excited that everyone's taking the time. So this call is really going to go the same direction that the last couple of calls have gone for those of you who've been with us, and I'll kind of give the outline for those of you who are joining us for the first time. We're going to run through kind of insane productivity challenges from you guys. So you guys will get to raise your hands and go to meeting. You have that ability. You also have the ability to ask questions in the question area. And so we can bring you all into the conversation. I always say at any time that you all set the direction of this next hour is the best that we have. And so hopefully one of you will be brave enough to allow us to empower you to contribute to the group. And we're also really going to be talking about what's going on in the market. We've got a lot of positive feedback from those of you who've been on the call, just with having us talk about the strategies that we're seeing day in and day out that are successful. And so, Q&A from you guys on that part will be terrific as well. Really excited to have alongside of us today, co-hosting the call is Michele Town, $100 million producer with RPM Mortgage. Welcome, Michele.
Welcome, everybody. Nice. Thank you for having me.
And we've got for half of our call, because he's shuffling around some appointments so he could join us for a little bit, is I don't know if I'm going to get the number right, but I think it's almost $900 million team leader, Danny Horanyi. How you doing, Danny?
Not quite 900. It's about I think it's about 370, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Oh, 370, 900 loans. Yeah. 900 units.
Yeah, 874 units. Yeah, 900 million would be. We're a couple years out from that.
All right. I know the vision's $1 billion. So all right.
Coming to you from the future. Yeah.
And I always love Danny's such a contributor to the mortgage coach community, and I kind of view you as the father of the move up analysis and some of the other strategies that I'm seeing clients and other mortgage coach users deploy. So so that part's kind of exciting. Real quick, something I didn't ask you guys before the call started. I was telling you guys, I ran a mastermind this week with some of the producers in the Building Champions Master's Coach program, and we had 7 people all on video. It was kind of like the Brady Bunch where we could see each other, and we really started off with kind of how's everyone doing after Q1 is over, right? Q1's behind us. For some people it was a huge success. They're just crushing it. Numbers are better than they've ever been, up 40%. And I got other people who, because of inventory and everything else in the market, it was okay. It wasn't great, but and then we kind of talked about outlook for the year. So how are you guys doing, Danny, compared to last year, and what do you think in 2017 is going to look like for the rest of the year?
So we're massively up in our purchase volume. So we are up about 40% in our purchase volume, but our overall volume is steady. So we had no growth. So we replaced all of our refinances from Q1 with new purchase, and that number isn't quite as impressive though, because we increased our staff by about 40%. So 35-40%. So we were really hoping to kind of come out swinging. We're really proud of the purchase improvement. And the fact that we were able to replace all of our, first quarter of 2016 refi volume, and we're seeing a really steady increase in purchase leads coming in. So I can see us on the right trajectory, but our goal for this year is 1,200 units, 1,200 families helped. And if it was linear, which fortunately for all of us it's not linear, we would be way behind that goal. So we have a little bit of ground to make up.
Love it. But you guys are optimistic you can still get there.
Yeah, with as long as we're executing around what we call our captive audience marketing strategy, every purchase that we have in process turns into more than one purchase. It's like 1.1 or 1.2 purchases by converting listing agents over to referral sources. And so I actually just got off a call with a person that we helped, a listing agent that we had never met before the transaction, and she just referred over 2 clients today, and another one is likely to come over tomorrow. So 3 leads from a referral source that we had never interacted with before, never went to coffee with, is pretty awesome opportunity. So if we keep that up, then you know, the purchase volume will continue to grow, and we'll you know, exceed, you know, that kind of monthly target and make up the difference for Q1.
Love it, love it. So captive audience, can you give us like a brief overview of what that captive audience strategy looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the concept is pretty, I mean, pretty basic to sales, right? You sell to the people that, you know, already know you. So in this case, we include every person in the transaction that's going forward. So the normal process, or the one that, you know, it's really, you know, kind of natural and intuitive, is you call, you know, we're constantly calling agents and inviting them to meet with us. So this is not captive audience marketing. This is the cold call to the agent who you're targeting, and you're saying, you know, hey, let's get together for a cup of coffee or a beer so I can tell you how great I am, right? And maybe based on that, you're going to deliver me leads. In captive audience marketing, we show them how great we are first, and then ask for the business. And throughout the process of the escrow, we're communicating to them, hey, this is what we're going to do to add value to your seller or your buyer if we happen to win them from a cross-qual. And we ask them for constructive feedback, which is genuine. We really want to learn if we can get better, but it turns out that that's a really powerful message when you're asking, you know, another business professional to criticize your business. You know, that builds trust. And then in the end, you know, congratulating them for, you know, getting everything done and having everyone done a great job, and then you have massive permission to ask for the business at that point, and it's almost a natural thing rather than it being an awkward part of the sales process to ask that person you'd never known before to deliver you leads and trust you to do that.
I love it. I love it. I just think it's such an opportunity when everyone's worried about inventory and the number of deals they're doing. You know, why not go at it a different way? Because, you know, like you said, that's the hardest part oftentimes when I'm coaching people through going after referral partners, is if you're not going to be there to add value, then it's just like you showing up and throwing up that you're the greatest thing ever. And, you know, I think they're tired of that.
Yeah, you can show them first and get them a paycheck first, and then it's pretty easy to ask.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. So if anyone has any questions for Danny around that, feel free to raise your hand or throw it into the question piece in your go-to meeting. You know, it's funny. One of the things that Michele talked about before was that she's going to quit this year. And, you know, one of the challenges I think that we've had the most questions on from all of you, from the Insane Productivity group, is always around jam sessions, right? That ability to turn off the rest of the world, right? Ignore the realtor who wants a quick update on an appraisal, ignore the noise of the team member asking a question that they could have looked up themselves. And Dan and I were blown away when Michele talked about her day last Friday after she got off this call. So let's hear it, Michele. How was last Friday quitting?
Last Friday quitting was the most empowering and amazing and mind-clearing thing that I've ever done. I have an incredible coach that just really pushes me into ways where I just, you know, that's what our coaches do. We hire them to push us and to show us a different way to look at things. And one of the things that is on what's been going on with me is that I'm a sprinter, and I unfortunately I sprint too long. I don't know when to take the break. So she usually, you know, cracks me over the head with a 2x4 and says, I'm going to fire you if you don't take Friday off. So I listen because I don't want to lose her. So at Friday, I had an appointment that had to come in on Friday. It was the only time they came in. So I started my 24 hours of zero technology at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and all the way through Saturday until I think I told them it was 27 hours. At 8 o'clock, I finally actually turned on my phone and turned on my computer. And it is so freeing not to be tied to this phone. I had sent my phone to my assistant or my partner and said, hey, you've got the phone. If you need me, The only way that you can get me with somebody is bloody or dying. Other than that, you've got it. You can handle it. You can handle any challenge that comes in. Anything else can wait. So I can tell you when I woke up on Saturday morning just from not having that computer, because I started it a little bit earlier on Friday, but I had to break off during that appointment time. But my brain was so mush, and I didn't realize how much it was until Saturday morning when I woke up and I felt like 20 pounds had been lifted off my shoulders. I would love if we can round robin to a couple of people, and maybe start with Danny because he made a comment, is one of the biggest things is, oh my gosh, that gives me anxiety, and why? And it gave me anxiety too, and it still gives me a little bit of anxiety when I'm about to turn off that phone, but I would like to know why, because this is what my coach asked me, why does it give you anxiety? What are you afraid that you're going to miss during that 24-hour period that is so critical? I guess that would be a great question. I would love to get feedback from people so I can maybe help allay some fears, or maybe you're going to give me back some of my fears.
I love that. All right, Danny, she called you out. What do you think?
I mean, you hit it on the head, Michele. It's fear of loss. It's fear of, FOMO, fear of missing out, right? There's, I still to this day, and I was actually just talking with my business partner, Sam Hansen, about this yesterday, how I still to this day look at every single referral source that we have and every opportunity and every phone call as the cornerstone of our business and the Jenga piece that if you pull it out, the whole tower is going to fall down. And it's, I'm a pretty logical person, and so I can take a step back and self-reflect and say, you know what, that's a ridiculous limiting belief to hold. And I can intellectually say that, but emotionally, there is that fear that if I slow down for 1 minute and don't have my finger on the pulse for 1 minute, that something terrible is going to happen, and then I'm going to look back and say, man, if I would have just done this or that thing, I could have avoided all these challenges. And I say that now, and there's a lot of things in our business that are unavoidable. There are so many moving parts, and there's already enough kind of, tailspins and crash and burn type situations that are being managed through, that the idea of almost, I think of it as almost an invitation to pain. And so I have it's not my saying, I believe I picked it up. For some reason, I want to say from Extreme Ownership, but I think it might have been a different book, that I'd rather carry the pain of discipline rather than the pain of regret. And that's kind of the mindset that I operate in. And so that idea of unplugging, even though, again, intellectually, I know I probably could, get across that bridge and be totally fine. I'm just not prepared to roll the dice yet.
I love that. It's funny, the pain of discipline or pain of regret, that's a Jim Rohn quote. It was the first.
There we go, yeah.
My first coaching assignment 13 years ago from Coach Bill Hart, and I had to memorize that. We all must suffer from one of two pains: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. While the pain of discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. And so I think that's pretty huge. And I think the FOMO thing is a big part. And I think the part that I heard, Michele, that I think is great is that you did forward your phone, so that way if someone needed to call you, someone else was answering it. But you also said you had like 300 emails when you got done, which is super crazy. But there was obviously no blood and death in there, correct?
No blood and death, and one thing, Danny, that and probably what Cindy puts in, probably because for me it's a lot of I am so business heavy, and I give up so many personal things, and that pain of regret thing, I switched it over to the pain of regret. I was missing all my nieces and nephews' birthday parties. I was missing their baseball games. I was missing everything. And when I'm 49, so I'm probably at a different state than some people are. I'm in the I call it the tail end of my career. And what I'm starting to realize is that, I don't want to wake up in 5 years and have life pass me by. And that is probably where it was a lot of last year. I went to Building Champions, and it was a lot of self-reflection that realized that I was missing the most important things in my life. And that is why I do it once a quarter, where I disconnect for 1 day, or unplug for 1 day. And I tell you, I come back so supercharged, it's not even funny.
So I love it. So let me throw in a couple of things. So my challenge to everyone on the call, besides raising your hand and giving us your 2 cents, that would be the first challenge. But then the other part is, I mean, think about it. If Michele can unplug for 27 hours and you're thinking, gosh, she's just superhuman and I'm not, you know what? You can unplug for an hour and do a jam session today and focus on whatever you think it is that's important. So first off, that's my soapbox as a coach. The second thing is use technology as your friend. And what I mean by that is that I went to Italy with my family, took a 3-week vacation a couple summers ago, and I committed that I was going to totally unplug. And I'd taken vacations before. We've all been on those where, you know, we say we're going to unplug, but we're still checking email before the kids get up, and there's, you know, still that one realtor who you have to call from wherever you are in the world. And I said I'm going to be totally unplugged. And I had a gap. I had my email forwarded to my business partner. You know, with the auto, you know, literally forwarded that he got it, and it said, I'm out of town. This email's being forwarded to Matt Baker, and he can take care of you. And then I had my phone turned off. Voicemail said, don't leave a message. You reached Todd. And don't leave a message because I'm not checking them. But my gap was in the text message piece, because I did get a handful of texts from people wondering why I never called the lead that they had texted over. And that was a problem. And so, you know, when I think of fear, right, my fear was always letting people down, right? People had expectations of how I was going to respond. And so my fear was I was going to fail at those expectations. And so the technology piece that I put in place for my team this year, that we've been testing out, is an app called Line 2, just like the word line, L-I-N-E, and the number 2. And a basic Line 2 service, you know, we got a deal because we bought, 15 numbers. It's $100 a year. Their premium service is $150. And literally what it is, it's a second phone line for your phone. And so, literally next to, on my main screen of my iPhone, next to my text message box and my call box, is this Line 2 app. And I use it actually as my coaching phone number. That's why I got it. I tested a bunch of different services last summer. So that way, when I was in New York for 3 months last summer, coaching from there, my clients found me on my cell phone. And once I get a permanent office going, I'm in temporary space right now, I'll have it go to a phone there. I can forward it. But with my loan officers now, because I had a loan officer who last year went on her honeymoon, and I thought, you know what, it's just wrong if she has to work while she's sitting on the beach in Mexico on her honeymoon. And so, we still had this gap with her text messages. People were texting her, and that's, again, her biggest form of communication. And so now, starting in 2017, 100% of the loan officers and loan officers assistants, everything has this Line 2 phone number on it as their phone number. And no one's gone on vacation yet, so that hasn't happened, but we've got it coming up soon, where then we'll take that Line 2 phone number and we'll forward it, and the phone number allows for phone calls to come through and text messages to come through. So we're trying to solve that text gap. So I would encourage anyone who wants that ability in the future to be able to disconnect, to look out technology solutions like that, because that's the magic there, right? You guys are all working so hard to build a great career, and I think that's the biggest thing that we give up in this 24/7 loan officer role, is that ability to truly unplug. And that would be that's my suggestion. I don't know if anyone else, either you guys have any other technology tips?
Not off the top of my head, but I definitely wrote that one down.
Yeah, there's a couple of them out there. I will say this: the only thing you need to know about it is it does not work right on the Android device. So ironically, all of the loan officers on our team, 10 of them all have iPhones, and then the loan officer assistants all have Android devices. They've got a workout that's going to come out in the next month or two. But what happens is when a second call rings in, which, Danny, you're busy enough if you've got a Android that you're going to get it ringing all the time, it actually automatically puts the current call on hold, and then you don't realize it, but you're in the middle of a conversation, and then you're actually talking to the person who just called in. With iPhone, it works flawless. So they are working on that.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't fly.
There may be others out there. We didn't find that out until I had 15 people install on their phones, because I tested it on my iPhone and it was great. So keep that in mind. But that's I'm sure if you look it up, there's other competitors for it. I don't remember what the other ones were that I had looked at. And for me, running a team, we needed to be able to control all 15 numbers from one portal, and so there were some other things that were kind of important for us. But I just think it's great. If I was an individual loan officer and I didn't have any team members, I mean, again, you have that ability to you could hand your cell phone to somebody. At one point I got a second cell phone. I told everyone I didn't have the other phone number anymore, which was a total flat out lie. I had it. And then eventually I trained all my realtors to use this new cell phone that was just my realtor cell phone that they weren't supposed to give to clients. And lo and behold, eventually it just became the phone that everyone had the phone number for. And so, it didn't really work that way. So now this new app, I think, is going to be the magic bullet. We'll see. We will see. All right. So I still have no hands. I'm going to empower someone to give us maybe a different topic. Someone here in our group, and the good news is I see lots of familiar faces who we pick on all the time. And normally Dave and I go to the top first, but I'm going to warn Katie Pastor that I'm going to call her out because she's always got great content to add and is pretty transparent. So I'm going to unmute you, Katie, and hopefully you can give us a direction to take this call. Hello, Katie. Can you hear me? Katie Pastor, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well, thanks. How are you, Todd?
I'm excellent. As corny as it sounds, this is truly like my favorite hour of the week. I've really enjoyed being on this call. So what would you love to hear from, well, first off, do you have any comments on Michele's 27 hours of quitting? Could you do that? Have you ever done that? Do you do that?
Yeah, so I love the idea. I think I also am afraid of what I'm going to be missing. I'm going to lose any opportunities. So I love the idea. I know the importance of it. I have done it. I don't know if I've done it for a full 24 hours, but sometimes it's just a date night without technology. That's always nice, and I try and do that at least once a week. But let's be real, it doesn't happen once a week. So yeah, I like the idea. I think my biggest fear is, am I going to lose out on a lead? Am I going to, this industry is so competitive that I just have this underlying fear of, well, if I can't get to it right away, they may refer it to somebody else. However, I know that, my relationships with my referring realtors are so strong, they're probably not going to be referring, but I just have this mindset of fear-based, and that's what I'm so fearful of. If I'm not available and if I don't get to them right away, I'm going to let them down, and they may choose to work with somebody else. So yeah, I do have that struggle, and that's why I haven't committed, and I'm afraid to commit to that.
No, I think that's the biggest fear that everyone has who sits in the loan officer seat. So I appreciate you sharing that. What about ideas? Let's talk insane productivity for a minute. Where are you at right now? What module?
So I'm on 3. I completed 3, and I'm a little bit behind. I just feel like the first 2, I took a big gap between completing 2 and 3. So I'm going to spend this weekend and I'm going to go through the first 3 again just to make sure that it's fresh. I have implemented some things with my team over the last few days, in that we are all going to be spending on time together. So my on time is also going to be my team's on time, and we have established goals for each one of them depending on their role. And we're committed to doing 60 minutes, three days a week of working to achieve whatever that goal is. So I'm excited about that, and hopefully next week we'll have some good progress, and everybody can stay on task and avoid any distractions, because I think everybody on our team ends up distracting each other. So it's going to be nice to have us all on the same page and having our on time together.
I love that. I've never heard of anyone doing on time all at once as a great way to eliminate people from disturbing your on time. It seems so obvious, but I think what a huge takeaway. Are they struggling? It sounds like you've given them a task of what to do. Are they struggling, like at the end, saying, "Oh gosh, I ran out of things to do," or how's that working?
No, I don't think so far. No, everybody knows, and I think it's just. I think they also appreciate that there's some direction. They know what they're going to be doing within that time. So we've made it very clear on, this is the objective, this is the goal, and this is what we're looking to get out of that. And again, I think they also appreciate that they're not going to have each other interrupting them. So yeah, so it's good results. And also, I implemented this with one of my realtor partners as well. I told her, you know, she's one that wants to get together all the time, and she is a very big realtor, so my time with her is well spent. However, she doesn't have a lot of control over her day, and I noticed I tend to fall into that when she's wanting to meet and she's wanting to chat, and my day gets thrown off because I'm adapting to her schedule. So I told her just this past week, I said, you know, here's what I'm going to be doing on this day at this time. And she loved the idea, and she ended up doing it with me, and she, you know, actually got me a referral out of that. So I love the on-time thing. I think it's very powerful for our teams. Also, if we incorporate that with our business partners, you know, when our business partners see that we're so committed and we're driven and determined, they want to do business with us. So if we can encourage them to join us, they'll see great results, and I think it just strengthens our partnerships.
I love that. See, the only thing that's better than having your team members not bug you because they're doing on time as well is then you don't have to have a fear of missing out if your referral partners are doing on time too. Then no one's going to be unbusy to bother you. That's genius.
Yeah, and it also gives them, they know if I'm not responding, here's why. You know, I'm working on delivering results and you know, driving more business and hopefully business back to them. So yeah, I think the communication and letting them know what's happening is really important.
No, and I think that's great, and I want to highlight it for all of you who are thinking that on time and, you know, these jam sessions are a struggle. Is the communication is the key. I think that's how you get around the fear of expectations. And I love, Katie, that you said you have great relationships with your partners, so you don't have to worry about it, because we all know there really are two types of partners. I mean, you truly have friends in the business who are your friends first, business partners now second, and you know, they support you and they're gonna know this about you. And then we worry about the newer partners, you know, the people that Danny's talking about who, you know, now found him and loved him through a transaction. They don't know yet that Danny's got these disciplines, and if they may be used to some other previous loan officer who was, you know, Jane on the spot, always calling back quickly. And so it's that education and communication piece that is huge. And most loan officers are scared to have that. Did you get any pushback at all when you told your partners, hey, I'm going to be spending an hour a day, 3 times a week, focusing on growing my business so I can be better for you?
No,
So I think that's a big takeaway for those of you listening to kind of hear that and maybe take that as a great takeaway from this call. I was talking to I've got a 21-year-old who's about to graduate from college, as serious as that is, and she's going to listen to a venture capitalist speak this morning, and she is not into the same things I'm into. I would have thought that was an awesome opportunity, and she was just viewing it as a terrible thing to do. And so I encourage her just to walk away with one nugget. There's probably one thing this guy's going to say that'll impact her future life and her future job that she's planning on getting. And so if you guys take nothing else from this call, take that, right? Take what Katie just said about communicating to your partners about what you're doing and don't have fear. All right, any other questions, Katie, that you would have for the community that's on the call, or for Michele or Danny, that would be helpful for you to be more insanely productive?
Yeah, I would just say for Danny, he had mentioned something that I think he said he does a survey for the people that are on a transaction, and I want to say maybe it was the listing agent. How do you ask for feedback? Is that through a survey? Is it through an email? Is it a phone conversation? How do you get that information?
It's actually a personal phone call. So
okay.
and the script is super easy. It's right around. So in California, we have loan and appraisal contingencies. I'm not sure if it's the same everywhere, but that's right about the middle of the transaction, and it's a big emotional milestone. It's kind of when everybody realizes that, you know, the ship's going to get into harbor and everything is going to be okay. And so I'll call within a day or two, sometimes even same day from when we recommend the release of contingencies, and you know, reach out and call either the list. I call both the listing agent and the buyer's agent, even if one or the other happens to be a referral source already. And just to, let them know if it's somebody that we already know, it's just an appreciation call and kind of just a check-in. It's a nice transition into a conversation and a touch point. And with somebody that we don't know, and even those that we do, not 100% of the time, but every so often, every few transactions, I'll say something like, it would be a huge favor if you could share. I'll ask them how it's going first. How do you feel it's going? And then usually they'll say, oh, it's great. Your video updates on Friday that give status, into the weekend are something that we've never seen before and we really enjoy. It gets everybody on the same page. Okay, cool. That's fantastic. Yeah, we spend a lot of time investing in strategies to really make sure that everybody's having a great experience. And then I'll say something like, our team really thrives, though, on constructive criticism. We're always looking to improve, and the systems that we've put in place so far have come as feedback or as solutions to feedback that we've gotten from our business partners. So is there anything that you can share with me? We'd really, really appreciate it if you identify something even small that we can improve to make the experience better for your buyer or your seller. And then I just wait and listen. And 9 times out of 10, they'll continue to sing our praises and say how great we are, which basically what they're doing is selling themselves on our team and our service. And then 1 time out of 10, they'll say, you know what, the handoff between this person and this person was a little bit sloppy, or the tone of that email or video message was not really something that calmed my seller down or made them feel good. And then that's even better, actually, because then we can find out where the weaknesses are in our process. It's kind of like a smoke alarm, right? Before there's actual fire, we can go in and address these little minutia that is limiting our ability to be maximum impact for these people, for the listing agents, buying agents, and their clients.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Great question. I appreciate, again, always, Katie, allowing us to empower you to speak. And if you think of anything else, just raise your hand and keep up the good work.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Todd.
All right. So Scott has a question.
This is Todd, I apologize. I do have to take off right now, but I really appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you so much for being on the call and for participating.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you carving out some time for us.
Have a great one. Bye.
All right. So Scott had a great question, and normally we call out Scott, but I'll just go ahead and read it out of the question, and I'll substitute for Danny since he said it was for Michele and Danny. How do you make the seamless transition from getting the client to commit to using your services and passing them along to your team to collect all their info and getting the loan fully originated without you having to get back involved in the start of the file? Or do you have to follow up to make sure the client is getting all their info in? All right, Michele, did you get that one?
Oh, yeah. And, what a great question. And I can tell you, up until last year, I did it terribly. But I made a few changes and kind of trusted, I have the same fears everybody else has. If I'm not there, somebody's going to call somebody else. If I pass it on to somebody else, do I lose my value? So one of the things in my intake call with my clients, I'll go through the basics of, how to qualify. I'll look at, ask them just 20 questions about their income, credit challenges, just normal basic intake stuff. And then I think it's a beautiful handoff. I let them know that my partner, Michael, will be reaching out to him shortly with a loan application and a list of items that we need. And I let them know that Michael is an expert at what he does. I am an expert at structuring loans, and that's what but I pay Michael a ton of money to be good at helping me collect all the data to make sure that everything is done. I also let them know that I am on every email, so I'm really not, but I let them know that I'm on every email because I know my team will always reach out to me if they need me. But if you can set the expectations up front that this is what Michael does or this is what your partner does, and I don't call them an assistant, I call them a partner because I have found that when I use the word assistant, it devalues them in some people's eyes. So this is my production partner, Michael. He's going to reach out to you, and Michael is required to call him introduce himself so that he can start that personal relationship with them and let them know, I'm sending you the application. Here's a list of items you need. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Here's my personal number. I will be your best point of contact until we go to the pre-approval status. So I hope that helps you, because it helps me tremendously.
You know, I think it's great, and what I'll highlight in there is the scripting, right? I mean, keep in mind it's what you call name things. I thought of it this morning. I got a headlight out on my car, and I called into the service guy, and his voicemail said, I will call you at my earliest opportunity. And I liked that word because oftentimes I hear people's voicemail that say, I'll call you at my earliest convenience, which to me makes it sound like, oh, it's convenient to me, like not necessarily convenient to you. And I love opportunity. And so I love it that you call Michael a partner, because then it's a hand up, right? It's not a hand off, right? Hey, because I agree with it. When people have an assistant, let me have you go to my assistant. And you guys most of you have heard me say it before. I mean, when I stepped out of production almost a year ago, you know, I left a 15-year career to a kid who was 22 at the time and had been in the business for just about a year. And he was a window estimator before. And so he wasn't polished in customer service. He was polished in sitting in a room and calculating how much a custom window cost when a salesperson came in and gave him the dimensions. And so I had to think, what do I call him? He didn't know anything about loans. He didn't, you know, where he was learning it. He wasn't a loan officer. He wasn't even really I guess you could say he was an assistant. And ironically, we settled on my right hand. I just said, hey, he's my right hand. And, you know, and I'm terrible at, I'm great at talking to you about what your loan is, just like you said, Michele. I'm an expert at loan structure. I said, but gosh, when it comes to paperwork, you know, what I would be doing you a disservice if I kept you in the loop. And, you know, Levi's just awesome at it. And I never tell him that he's just a kid, because I'm in the same age bracket as Michele is. And so he is just a year older than my oldest daughter, and so it's a little bit kind of scary from that perspective. But I think it's that scripting piece, right? You have to kind of educate people on what they're doing. Do you have anyone ever say, Michele, no, don't do that? Like, I want only to talk to you?
Never. The only time that, and I'll say never at the beginning, never had an issue with that. The only time that, if we get into a transaction that becomes complex, there, you know, we all have our clients that are, you know, only want to talk to you. And I do my best to get that person over to the team. But there are some people that do not embrace the team concept. And I find that with my older crowd, my millennial crowd, I have zero problem with that. So there are some times that I have to be the one that takes on that call. Because they get frustrated, they're older, they're not as computer savvy, so the amount of paperwork that comes to do a loan is incredible. And like Danny had said, there's so many moving parts on a loan that sometimes they'll have to do that. But that's 1%. So I would tell you, last year there were probably less than 20 clients that I actually had to handhold. But what I did was I got them so comfortable with Michael that they ended up, when I get my reviews, this is how you know you're doing it right. And I used to get offended by this, but I don't anymore. When my review comes back and tells me how wonderful Michael was, I go, okay, all right. And I'm not even mentioned. It's perfect.
I think that's the best. Nothing I love more than someone on my team who's in a supporting role, that they're getting the gift at the end from the client and not me. That's awesome. What about from I think the other piece of this is that oftentimes clients, they're used to, right? Everyone uses the doctor's office example where people are just doing, you know, their own job. And so oftentimes I find clients don't have a problem as long as you're doing the handoff correctly. And I love that Danny pointed that out when he was giving his example before of his conversation with the listing agent. You know, the handoff is often botched because people don't script it like you just did. I find more resistance from a realtor who says, well, gosh, you know, are you going to take care of my client, Michele, all the way from start to finish, or are you just going to be passing it off to somebody else? How do you handle that objection?
So I don't rarely run into that, and it's probably because I'm very regimented on my follow-through throughout the transaction. So I'll just give you a basic transaction. Purchase contract comes in, I reach out to listing agent and selling agent. And again, in that first phone call is the introduction to the team. My team is going to be emailing you. There's going to be one email for the entire team. I will be calling you once a week and checking in with you to make sure everything's going okay. I'll also be checking in with your client. I let them know that I make 3 phone calls on every purchase once a week. So when I'm trying to get my 100 phone calls in a week and I've got 40 transactions going, that's super easy. So what I found right now is that as long as I'm calling the client and I want to preface a phone call, an email and a text, unless that's their preferable way of communicating, that phone call goes a long way. And I think so many of us hide behind our technology a little bit because we get so busy. But I block out 2 hours, 2 hours every Monday, 2 hours every Friday, and those are the 2 hours that I make all my phone calls. And I do them until I can't do them anymore. So I would highly suggest, if you do your handoff to your team, still make sure that you're personally calling the agents or personally calling the client, because it keeps that, when you have a team, it keeps you as a leader in it. And at least that's what I found. I don't know if that answered the question.
No, I think that's great. And I found that, right, once agents got to know us and know our system, they were good with it. And, I've got a kind of a unique spot in my career where my wife and I were growing branches for a company, and I was doing a lot of recruiting. And that was the first time I stepped out of production, and I was handing everything off to what I called, again, kind of my right hand at that time. And agents that I had worked with for all these years who were used to my involvement didn't like it as much. And because they just loved how I did it. But as I brought on new agents and said, awesome, well, here's how it's going to work. You're going to call in and you're going to have your client ask for Todd or David, knowing that they're always going to get David because I was never going to answer the phone. You just couldn't get a hold of me. And then he would say, awesome, Todd's currently assisting a client. I'm his right-hand David. And he would use his scripts and he would run with that. And I found oftentimes that when agents were aware of that, when they knew what my role was, they were hesitant to do business. And I find a lot of loan officers get nervous about how do you script that to someone you're trying to get to do business with. And I always found that the best way to overcome that was just to ask, that's a great question. What is it that you're concerned about? Because they always had this experience where they were going to tell you about the loan officer who handed it off to their processor and never talked to anyone again, and that the deal was a disaster. And then that's where I would get to use the storytelling of how our process runs. So you have to have a process, and I would be telling just what I heard Danny tell or just what I heard Michele tell, where you're talking about, awesome, well, here's the part of the conversation that I would do. Here's the script and the handoff. Here's what the next person does. And then they own it the rest of the way. Or even if that person gets handed a processor, and then here's what that handoff looks like so that people know. Because in the end, the more people, how many people touch a client in your world right now in every transaction, like where they actually communicate with them?
I have 3 on every transaction, myself, Michael, and then my closing coordinator.
So, and again, so that's, 3 I think is a pretty good number. If anyone has more than 3 people, I'd love you to raise your hand because I'd love to hear how you're doing it, and I've heard of people having up to 5 people, different people reaching out to a client during a transaction, and I've heard the success stories and I've heard the miserable failure stories too, and I think that always is a challenge. All right, so I have no hands up. I have no more questions in my question box. I'm appreciative of Scott for asking it, so I'm not gonna empower him to speak unless he raises his hand, because I'm appreciative of people using whichever version of technology is there. I would love. I'm going to call on you, JC. You always like to add some value, and you're right above. Almost right above. There's someone in between you guys, Katie, but I'm going to unmute you and see what you think and if you have any questions in a different direction than we're going or on the same path. All right, JC, you're unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep, thanks, Todd. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent, but I feel like I'm talking too much today, and I always view the success of these calls by how much we get you guys to talk. So where are you at right now in Insane Productivity?
Let's see. I'm really hard-headed, so I've been through Insane Productivity 3 times now, and I think I've actually grasped the concepts in there, and moved on to Ludicrous. So all I'm trying to do is work through and maintain the consistency of all the lessons learned in Insane Productivity, and really make all the time that I've gained more productive. It allows me to work on the business a lot more rather than in it. And I've taken so much value away from this call today. We've got a new loan officer assistant, and we've been designing, the process and how this is all working, and just amazing from the members on this call today. Answered a lot of questions and concerns, and I really enjoyed this one.
Awesome. So some people probably don't know what ludicrous is. Can you give the 2-second sales pitch for Darren on that?
Yeah, Ludicrous is basically insane productivity designed for the leadership side of things. And as a branch manager, I want to be, the best leader that I can for my group. I'm on module 2 of that one, so I'm early in the process, but really defining who your group is, what your mission is, and shaping what that's going to look like. It also points the finger at the leader as the one who is responsible for everything that happens, good and bad. Well, actually, good. It's not our win. It's always the person that did it. But if anything happened bad, it's always you. So it's been an interesting introspective look at some circumstances that have gone on over the past couple of years. I kind of would have pointed my finger at the individual that caused them, but this has taken me a different route to look at myself and what I had, what my part was, because at the end of the day, people do how they're led, and I want to be the best I can there.
Love it. No, and I appreciate the transparency there, and I think, again, what I love about sort of how this call's going, and I would love some feedback from anyone in the questions area, with regards to the fact that we are doing some real life mortgage kind of masterminding as well as insane productivity mixed in. So it's great to hear that that you're digging Michele and Danny's what they had to say. In fact, I'm making notes. I'd also point out real quick before I have JC comment on that is that you've heard 2 different strategies from the 2 people that we've empowered to speak. You heard Katie, who said she's just finishing up module 3, and then she's going to review those 3 modules before she moves on. So she's not feeling the pressure of the email every week saying there's a new module available, and she's not feeling the pressure that, quote unquote, you could say she's behind. I think that she's going to master that section, and that I'm super impressed with that. Then you hear JC, who said, I'm stubborn and I'm going through this, been through 3 times. And so, that's kind of where Michele and I are. We've been through this, I've listened to most of the modules now in double digits, and 8 I've probably listened to an extreme number of times just because it's my favorite module. You talked about training an assistant. What was your biggest challenge with training the assistant, and what was your biggest win with training the assistant?
The biggest challenge is me letting go. I'm so scared of mistakes being made and people thinking that I'm of less value because I'm not always involved in the transaction. Maybe I have this extreme idea that I am so important that I can't be removed, but that's not actually the case. It's all that's gone on in this call, the FOMO, it's all there. But Darren Hardy does talk about, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good. And so letting go of that desire and self-importance, all of those things that go through us, letting go of that has been the biggest challenge. And then, the biggest win is I get a lot of satisfaction training somebody else to do what I do. Watching them grow, watching them learn the business, and then really designing a system that is going to be very, very effective. This is my own deal, my own process that we're building to work specifically for the way we do things, and it's an interesting, unique experience for us.
So I love that. I love that you were transparent and talked about letting go, because I do think the challenge, right? I mean, I do think, I hate to say it, all of you on this call can do your job better than anyone else can do it. and so that idea of it just has to be good. And I appreciate where your heart's at with regards to the desire to help grow other people, right? I think that's a huge need in our industry. Again, I have no idea how old you are, but I know how old Michele and I are, and I think that is the biggest thing that I continue to see is we keep hearing, just like in real estate, that the mortgage world has sorry, I got distracted because that post popped up on my Facebook while I was walking by it. I have my new stand-up desk while I'm talking and going back and forth. So, but I just love that idea of helping other people grow. And, I just look at that even with I call it our LO pod that we're growing these young originators and helping them grow versus, these industry where supposedly the average age is now in the early to mid 50s.
Right.
That's really awesome.
I'm in that 45 range here at the end of April, and the assistant coming in is in the mid 20s. So, there's a lot of disconnect with the thinking process, but that's my other task to do, is to learn how to speak the language. It is a different way that they've grown up, and I'm trying to learn that too, so that I don't have this massive disconnect based off of the generational gap.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Are there any takeaways you can think of where he taught you something that you're like, wow, that's pretty wild?
Yeah, when the baby boomers came along, the generation before them said the same thing. You're just lazy and you don't respect authority and all of this stuff. So it's nothing new. There's just new circumstances. There's this whole technology thing, and they haven't been in a world war or a draft, so they don't have that same sense of duty that I think were instilled into me by my parents. You work hard and you play hard and you represent your country, and I think it's just a little bit different because of the way they've grown up and the massive amounts of information. They've got this distrust of the establishment. So it's just understanding that and what makes them tick, and then everybody can get along, and we just have to work at it a little bit.
Love it. I think that's awesome, and I would love maybe for those of you on the call who may be in your 20s, I would love on the next week's call, maybe we'll kind of get back into this millennial, what we can learn from the millennials for the older folks who are on the call, and then maybe you younger folks, we can learn from you guys as well. So we are at the 2-minute mark to go. We've got to. I've been instructed we need to be done at 9:55, and my clock says it's 9:54. So I'm gonna remute you, JC. Thanks again for jumping on. Michele, any last words in 60 seconds or less for this crew?
I think just keep moving forward. I love Danny's idea of getting outside your box a little bit and showing your value first and then asking for business. I think that's really what we need to do. And if you can't take 27 hours off, take an hour off without your phone, put it in the desk and go walk around and do something fun.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. I think that we had some great feedback. I am really appreciative of Scott, JC, and Katie for throwing in. I'm appreciative to the rest of you for being here. If you want to listen to Danny's script with the realtors, when Dave posts this back up, it's at minute 32. And then if you want to listen to Michele's scripts of how she's telling her clients that she's going to be handing them up to her partner, Michael, that's at minute 35. I think it was a great call. I really appreciate everyone for being here. Dave will be back with us next Friday, I believe, same time, same place. Just get out there and spend the next little bit of time on a jam session. If you haven't done any this week, I think that would be the best use of your day. And I agree with Michele. It doesn't need to be 27 hours. Good luck, and give that a try if you can. That sounds pretty amazing. I'm not there yet, but I just want to say thanks again. And on behalf of Danny, who's gone, Michele, and the rest of Dave and Marcy, thanks so much for being part of the call today. Take care.
Take care, everybody.